Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. Today, as the title will tell you, I am here to give you guys a bit of an update on my depth year and to also, I guess, track and record what has transpired for myself, things that I've, say, learned or experienced, slip-ups. So we will get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that. And I don't have any sort of order or list of ways that I want to go through this or topics that I want to touch upon, but I know what I'm going to talk about, generally speaking, and that's why I even felt compelled to sit down and record, is because I had things in my mind and thought it was time to give an update. So without further ado, it's not like I'm taking too long to get into this anyway, but I would say in the recent, past month or so, have, in a way, I would say fallen off the wagon, but with some caveats. I guess it depends on how I'm looking at it. There were purchases of decks, there were purchases of jewelry, and there were purchases of a few magical items. So, it's interesting. I wish almost that, I think in my head, the way I said about it was that I had these certain guidelines and structures in place to go through in order to acquire an item, but realistically, even outlining and saying that I had to do certain things in order to, say, acquire an item or purchase an item, there was a part of me that was almost trying to keep myself to 0 purchases overall, which isn't realistic. So anytime there was a purchase, it almost felt like a betrayal of the depth year, when the whole point was not to discontinue purchases. It was to make mindful purchases and to set certain parameters in place so that the purchase would be, or the consuming of a good or a tangible resource would be then, it would almost be forced to be more mindful and reflective because of the things I would have to do in order to allow myself to acquire it. Now, I will say that pretty much all of the things that I acquired were things that I thought about for well over a month. Some I had thought about for many months, even before the depth year itself had started, or they'd been bookmarked or on a list, or something to that extent. Either that or the idea of the item itself. For example, I bought a wand and an athame, both of which were items that, when I moved home and I moved from my last place, somehow got lost. So in the last few months, I have been working without both of those tools, and I knew since, I want to say, maybe August, that I wanted to purchase or repurchase those tools so that I would have them to work with. And so I happened to purchase those during this, I guess, past month, or at least in the time since the last update. Likewise with all of the jewelry, those were purchases that were, I had thought about the item for at least a month. They'd been in, say, like an Etsy cart or something like that, with the exception of a few when I went on vacation. But I did tell myself when I went on vacation that I wouldn't, I wouldn't try to go and splurge, but I wasn't holding myself to the rules, of course, because I was only there for a few days. And so I wouldn't exactly have time to, say, wait a month and really heavily journal on anything. So the few items that I acquired there, which weren't many, I gave myself a pass on. So there's that. And then I think a few decks, but not many. I would say jewelry and magical items I purchased more than decks. I'm trying to think of the amount of decks. I think overall I've purchased 5 decks overall. And they had all been, say, on a list, or on like my wish list for some time. So it wasn't like I just had found them and impulsively bought them. So they've been sitting for a while. They felt like they very much aligned with where I was at. One being something that I really needed to make a quick decision on and didn't expect it to appear. It being something that's no longer in print and independently published, and it was for a very good deal, and it was in very good condition. And I actually, it was on my list in my head, but it was so, in my mind, I was so unlikely to find it that I didn't even tangibly physically put it on a list. But I knew if the option occurred, or it presented itself, the circumstance, that I would act on it, of course, if the costs seem right. And in this case, it was a really great deal. So I'm not unhappy, and I don't feel down, I would say, about any of my purchases. I don't regret them. I don't feel like I am just throwing them to the wayside. So far, everything, any of these items and things that I have purchased within this time since the last update that, yeah, that were items that were, say, on my, what was I calling items? It was not like reflection, areas of investigation. That's what I was calling things that I was having these parameters for, were areas of investigation. So all of the purchases that fell under my areas of investigation are purchases that so far I don't regret, and I am using or taking advantage of the actual items wholeheartedly. So there's that. I did wait a month on almost all of them, the month that I'd set aside. However, I'm going to call myself out on the journaling aspect. I will say I've been journaling in general, and in turn been journaling about my thoughts on the depth year, on what it means, how I'm functioning within it. But I will say that for these items, I got lazy and did not journal specifically on each item, answering the questions I told myself I would have to answer in order to purchase these, which is why I'm really beating myself up. Because yes, these are items that I think if I had answered the questions, 9 out of 10 of these purchases would have made the cut, at least, if not all of them. But the fact that I didn't take the time to specifically journal on each item is not right, considering that's something that I wanted to do. I'm just noticing this lighting. It's really gloomy out and it's nighttime, and I have like tried to create this artificial situation, but also like I am realizing that today my skin and my hair just look a little bit oily and stuff, and the lighting is like really making me look shiny, so I guess we're just working with that. But yeah, so I'm calling myself out on the fact that I didn't do any specific journaling on these items. I will say I journaled about the depth year overall and my thoughts. So there were times when I'd mention certain items and I would question certain values and if I would do a certain thing, or am I using this? Likewise, I put out all of my Oracle deck collection in a collection series, which allowed me to really take stock of the decks I have, which ones I think I want to maybe give another chance, which ones I'm more siding toward trying to rehome, hopefully in the near future, which I don't know how I'll go about that. But, so there's that. And yeah, so that was really a mindful experience for me. I would say overall, this depth year has made me think quite a lot about my purchases. I think I feel more like the things that I'm consuming, buying, acting on and with in a tangible physical sense are more reflective of my values and things I want in the world, as opposed to me almost thinking that I need the item to achieve a certain end or means. I think I'm more now cognizant of the fact that I am me, and a lot of the things that I would like to do, or as far as like growth and who I am and how I express myself and how I live life, uh, the things are just tools, really. And instead of me thinking that I can't do something or that I need a thing to be able to get to a certain place or to do a certain thing, this has caused me to really take stock of and note of the fact that all of these things are not necessary for the most part. They're nice and they enhance an experience and they facilitate certain things, and in choosing things mindfully to say reflect a look that I find to be important, or like that is expressive of me, or a tarot deck that has, or an oracle deck that functions really much like under a concept, a specific set of concepts, in a structure that I find to align with my values or the way that I like to go about divination. Those are nice things, but do I need them? No. Ultimately, I express who I am by being myself. I don't need items or an outfit or an accessory. I don't need a certain set of divinatory tools to achieve certain ends or outcomes, and to have those options as somebody who likes to interact with divination for self-growth, for forecasting, to give something to clients, to have a professional practice. Realistically, I only need one tarot deck, and that's actually what I would say need to be a tarot reader. Likewise, I could probably go out and even use chunks of wood and create my own rune system and that could be a form of divination that I could use just as well, and it would be free. So, I it, it's an interesting relationship or something to think about. But yeah, so I'm calling myself out on certain things. I'm not going to show you guys every item. I'm not going to torture myself by taking you through every little bit. Likewise, I'm trying to think if I would be able to go throughout my room and pick just some of them are very small and just they were bought in like random clumps. So I won't do that. But I am calling myself out on the fact that I didn't follow protocol, so to speak. And yeah, but I will say that most of the items, at least I waited a month, so almost none of them were impulse buys, excluding vacation, which they may have been somewhat impulse, but there wasn't enough time to make any sort of educated, informed purchases, really. I guess in some regard, it, in the way that they filled spots of things that I knew I kind of wanted in a way. So like I guess the idea of the item existed in my head, and I had happened to encounter that on vacation, which is I don't know how to put that, but yeah, none of them were impulse purchases. I have journaled about the depth year itself and these reflections, some of which I'm sharing now, in the fact that none of these things are necessary. Is it really just a reflection of my values? I can still express myself without this. These are almost like really nice luxury facilitators of my path in life and who I believe myself to be and who I am and where I'd like to go and how I find happiness and fulfillment and meaning. And I can do all of those things without these items, but they are nice, and I will not try to say anything like I don't know. I don't want to downplay their importance, I guess, but at the same time, I do want to acknowledge the fact that they are luxuries and things that are wants and not needs. All of them, and so that's been interesting and fun to look at, and it's especially during times like this. As I'm recording this, it's probably going to be up within a day or two of me even recording this, so the time will be reflective of like when this is being recorded. I'm not uploading this weeks after, but given even just things going on now with the world and all of that, and people self-isolating and social distancing and the cases going around, and I live in New Jersey, so like the New York metro area, and I know, for example, my state has called like a state of emergency. We have curfews. Most businesses are closed. You can't really get a lot of essential items very easily. Or at least I think that based on what I found, the supply is still there, but the way that consumers are functioning. And so there we see another sort of consumer aspect in how we interact with the physical world as far as items go. And so that's been actually very, very interesting to me in lieu or in conjunction with my depth year. And so I have been using this opportunity to learn. I think the whole point of 2020 for me and the idea of this being my first depth year and trying to do these things and take on, say, studies with the divine feminine and how I've been progressing with the Thoth. I've been pushing myself to pursue things that I've wanted to pursue for a while, but was either too lazy or just didn't get myself up to it. And I've been a lot more regimented and structured in pursuing these things and actually delving into them. And now facing this, I know a lot of us, I'm pretty sure almost, not, I don't want to like say the broad spectrum that everybody's trying to go deeper in 2020, but that was the big theme of videos I saw for people discussing what their year entail, like the upcoming year would hopefully entail for them. And I think that's something we were all, a lot of us were hoping to do and planning to do and are still doing. And it's interesting that the circumstances have almost pushed us to actually have to do that in a way that's not so comfortable. We're making the best of the circumstances around us and trying to be, I don't know, I guess, good human beings, warm human beings who have a heart and like are good to their neighbors, but are also then in the way of, to be that good neighbor, to be that good community member is to say, be alone or be isolated, and to change your lifestyle a little bit in a way that's not so comfortable or easy. And so I guess this is like its own depth year in a way for a lot of us. So I would say like it was like a plush depth year of that I just did out of not on a whim, but just because I wanted to. And now I'm almost in a position where it's a depth year that's imposed by outside forces and in a much more serious, monumental way. I'm smiling because I'm trying to see this as a positive, or try to find something in it that um, feels beneficial to us all, or that we can all learn and grow from during these times. I think that, of course, it's good to be very realistic and to keep ourselves informed as information arises, and to think critically about what information we take in what way and how we believe it, and cross-referencing all of that. So stay informed, be good people, but at the same time, focusing completely on the negative and not at all on, say, the opportunities that can come out of a situation like this, I think will, I don't know, create sort of a negative space. And I think there's a time and place for negativity, but when we perpetuate it and wallow in it and sit in it and don't look to lift ourselves out of it, it can become harmful. And so I'm doing my best to look for positives, and this is a really great time for me to reflect on my depth year, to read more, to study more, to actually use the items I have, because I'm here and I'm isolated, and like I have so many wonderful things and tools and books and things that I can work on and be productive with, and not even just productivity in a more capitalist sense that is not fulfilling or progressive to, say, a human's path or humanity. I mean productive in things that I actually want to do for myself, because I would like to be like a certain way, and I see my path going a certain way. So that was a really big tangent, but that was the update on my depth year as of, what is it, today's Thursday, March 19th? Okay, so today's March 19th. So it's the evening of March 19th, and this is where I am. That's all that's happened, and those are, I guess, some of my thoughts on recent global events that are affecting us all in different ways. So, yeah, if you guys enjoyed what I had to say, or just watching me ramble, like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you all soon. So until next time, bye guys.